The galaxy had not known fear for centuries. The Imperial Dominion, an iron-fisted colossus that stretched across 1,000 star systems, had long crushed dissent before it could even bloom. Their fleets patrolled the void like wolves guarding their territory, armed with weapons capable of reducing planets to cinders. Entire civilizations had been erased for defiance, their worlds left silent and hollow. Fear belonged to others, never the Empire. But that changed the day an unknown signal pierced the void. It was faint at first, almost ghostly, like the echo of something old and long forgotten. The transmission rippled across the relay net stationed in the Velora expanse, an unremarkable sector bordering the quiet edge of Imperial control. The signal carried no identification codes, no diplomatic banners, no surrender protocols. Instead, it whispered coordinates in an ancient tongue few could recognize, Terran Standard. When the listening post commander replayed it, his skin chilled. He did not understand the words, but he felt their weight, a warning disguised as silence. He reported it to Central Command. By the time the bureaucrats finished arguing over its meaning, it was already too late. The warship had arrived. It appeared without warning, tearing into real space like a scar opening in the void. A single vessel, massive and angular, its black hull drinking in the stars around it. Unlike the sleek, ornamented ships of the Empire, this one was raw, utilitarian, brutal, as if it had been built for the sole purpose of survival and destruction. The automated threat scanners went wild. The ship matched no known registry, no archive of ancient fleets, no hidden ally or rebel construct. It was alien and yet, not. Stamped across its battered plating, still visible through centuries of wear, was a word that froze the blood of every officer who saw it. EARTH. The first engagement came swiftly. An Imperial patrol squadron, confident and unchallenged for generations, moved to intercept. Their commander laughed as he ordered weapons lock. A derelict, nothing more. Destroy it. Let the void keep its relics. The Earth warship answered not with words, but with fire. The first volley was precise, impossibly precise. Beams of light and magnetically accelerated rounds punched through the Imperial cruiser's shields as if they were mist. Explosions bloomed in silence, tearing steel and lives apart in mere seconds. The patrol squadron, 12 ships strong, was reduced to drifting wreckage before its commander could issue a retreat order. The survivors who managed to transmit fragments of the battle sent a single, chilling message before their signals were swallowed by static. It hunts us. Gods help us, it hunts. News of the massacre spread like wildfire. At first, the Imperial Council dismissed it as exaggeration, a pirate vessel with scavenged weapons, a lucky ambush. But when Sector Command sent an entire battle group to investigate and received only silence in return, unease spread across the high spire. This was not rebellion. Not piracy. Not a mistake. It was something worse. The whispers began, a ghost ship, a cursed war machine, a remnant of a species long thought extinct. Many in the Empire had never heard of Earth. Fewer still remembered the old histories, the scattered fragments of a stubborn, violent species that had vanished from the galactic stage millennia ago. Some scholars claimed they had destroyed themselves. Others believed they had fled into the void, seeking something beyond the reach of empires. Now, it seemed, they had returned. And they brought with them a weapon that defied reason. In the Velora expanse, chaos reigned. Imperial supply routes were ambushed, convoys annihilated, outposts silenced without trace. The warship never lingered, never spoke. It struck and vanished, a phantom cloaked in shadows. Some captains swore it warped through space in ways no Imperial vessel could, appearing inside defensive perimeters as if the laws of physics bent to its will. Each wreck left behind bore the same signature, scorched hulls and clean strikes, evidence of weapons technology the Empire could not comprehend. Panic spread among the lower ranks. Soldiers muttered prayers before deployments. Officers whispered of a curse that no fleet could face. Admirals silenced such talk with threats of execution, but behind closed doors, even they trembled. The Empire had built its power on absolute dominance. But now, for the first time in centuries, it was being hunted by a single warship from Earth. The Emperor himself convened an emergency council. His voice thundered across the chamber, demanding answers. What is this vessel? Where did it come from? Why have my fleets not destroyed it? Silence followed. No one dared admit the truth, that the Empire, vast and mighty, had no understanding of the enemy they faced. Finally, one man spoke. High Archivist Rilan, keeper of forbidden histories, his voice thin but steady. Sire, the records speak of them. Humanity. A people of fire and iron. They were exiled, hunted, erased from our chronicles by your forebears. Yet even then, whispers endured. They were said to build ships not as symbols, but as predators. Weapons that learned. Machines that remembered. The Emperor's eyes narrowed. You claim this is no mere relic? That this warship still serves its makers? Rilan's gaze did not falter. I claim, my Emperor, that if this ship has returned, then so too has Earth. Fear, true, unrelenting fear, settled upon the chamber. The Empire had faced rebellions, invasions, rival powers. All had fallen. But this was different. This was not defiance. This was not politics. This was vengeance. And the galaxy would never be the same again. The void was no longer safe. Where once imperial banners stretched unbroken across the stars, fear now carved jagged holes in the map. The warship of Earth moved like a phantom, a predator slipping through shadows, striking where no defense was strong enough, then vanishing without trace. Entire sectors began to whisper of it in hushed tones, the hunter of Velora, the ghost from old Earth, the silent reaper. Sailors spoke its name as though uttering it too loudly might draw its attention. It did not broadcast demands. It did not open channels. It offered no reason, no mercy, no chance of surrender. When it appeared, death followed. And the Empire's fleets, designed for dominance, not survival, were helpless before it. Admiral Sarek Kaler was among the first tasked with halting the hunter's rampage. He was a decorated veteran, his fleet of 30 ships armed with the latest in Imperial firepower. Confidence had always been his weapon, and as he stared at the tactical display aboard his flagship, he told himself this ghost was no different from the rebels he had crushed before. They say it kills squads. We bring an armada, Kaler muttered, his hands tightening around the rail before him. Let the phantom bleed before Imperial might. For days, his fleet scoured the Velora expanse. Empty space. Abandoned wrecks. Ghost signals that slipped between scans. The warship was always one step ahead, as though it could see their search before it began. Then, at last, the trap was sprung. The Earth ship appeared on the edge of the system, gliding from the black like a nightmare. It moved without escort, without formation, without fear. Target locked, his officers shouted. It's alone. Kaler felt triumph surge in his chest. Fire all batteries. No quarter. The void lit with fury. Dozens of Imperial cruisers unleashed their weapons, beams and plasma torpedoes streaking through space in radiant arcs. The hunter vanished into the barrage, swallowed by fire. For a moment, Kaler thought victory was his. Then the fire cleared. The Earth warship still moved. Its hull shimmered with scars, but it was alive, its engines burning with cold defiance. And then it struck. From its flank, weapons the Empire had no record of ignited. Hyperkinetic slugs tore through battleships, each round ripping through shields and armor as though they were parchment. Energy lances, silent and focused, cut destroyers apart with surgical precision. Kaler's fleet dissolved into chaos. Ships screamed for retreat, their comms filled with static and terror. One by one, they died. Within minutes, 30 Imperial warships lay in ruins. The hunter drifted among the wreckage, silent, its presence almost mournful. It did not fire upon the escape pods. It let the survivors flee, as though sending them back with a message. Kaler's flagship was the last to fall. In his final moments, as fire engulfed his bridge, he whispered in disbelief. "It's not a ghost, it's a judgment." The survivors carried the tale back to the Empire. The Emperor raged, demanding answers, demanding vengeance. He ordered more fleets. He ordered stronger weapons. But each time, the hunter adapted. Each battle brought new tactics, new strikes, as though the warship learned with every engagement. Entire regions began to slip from Imperial control. Merchants refused to travel the Velora expanse. Colonies whispered rebellion, emboldened by the idea that the Empire was not invincible. Worse still, whispers grew louder, this was not a lone ship. This was a vanguard. If one warship could unravel the Empire's fleets, what would happen if Earth returned in force? High Archivist Relan watched these events unfold with grim fascination. The old man pored over forgotten records, piecing together fragments long buried. He uncovered reports of Earth's wars, wars fought not for conquest, but for survival. Wars where humanity had stood against empires before, and against impossible odds, had always endured. The records spoke of Earth's ships, designed not as ornaments of power but as wolves among sheep, machines that could hunt, adapt, and endure far beyond their enemies' expectations. But one question haunted him: why now? Why had Earth returned after centuries of silence? His answer came in a fragmentary transmission intercepted by Imperial intelligence. The Earth warship had spoken at last. It was not a broadcast. Not a demand. Just a single, cold statement, translated by the archivists who still understood the ancient tongue. "We remember." The message spread like wildfire. The Emperor ordered it suppressed, but whispers carried it further than censors could silence. Across the Empire, soldiers began to wonder, what did Earth remember? What crime had been buried so deeply that it returned now, after centuries? And beneath the weight of those whispers, rebellion began to stir. In the shadow of the Velora Nebula, the hunter rested. Its hull bore scars of battle, but its engines pulsed with quiet strength. Inside, figures moved through its corridors, humans, their faces hardened by exile, their eyes lit with fire. For generations, they had wandered beyond the maps, their people scattered across the void. But now, they had returned. They carried no illusions of peace. No desire for negotiation. They had one purpose, etched into every steel plate of their warship, whispered in every breath they took. To remind the galaxy of Earth. Far away, in his golden throne room, the Emperor clenched his fists until blood dripped from his palms. For the first time in his reign, he knew the taste of fear. "This ends," he swore. "Summon the Grand Armada. Bring every ship, every weapon. We will burn this ghost from the stars." But even as he spoke, he wondered if the warship waited for exactly that. If Earth wanted the Empire to come in full. If every move they made had already been foreseen by the predator now haunting their skies. The stars themselves seemed to whisper a warning. The hunt had only begun. The Grand Armada gathered like a storm. It filled the Deros expanse with fire and steel, over 2,000 Imperial warships, their hulls glimmering in cold formation. The might of the Empire, unrivaled for centuries, had never assembled in such numbers. To the loyal citizens who watched the fleet depart, it was a symbol of certainty, of dominance. But to those who had already seen the hunter's shadow, it was desperation masquerading as strength. At the heart of the fleet stood the Emperor's flagship, the crown of ascendancy, a behemoth the size of a city. Its weapons could vaporize continents. Its shield matrix could withstand a supernova's fury. To the Emperor, it was invincible. And yet, in the silence of his throne chamber, he could not escape the echo of two words. We remember. The Earth warship appeared on the edge of the system. One ship. One predator against 2,000. It glided into view with quiet inevitability, its scarred hull absorbing the light of distant suns. It carried no allies, no reinforcements, no fleet. Only itself, and the weight of history. The Emperor snarled when he saw it on the display. One ship dares face the Empire? End this. The order was given. The armada advanced. The void ignited with fury. Thousands of weapons locked onto the lone warship, releasing storms of plasma, beams, and rail fire. The hunter vanished into the storm, swallowed by fire as it had before. But this time, it did not merely endure. It answered. From its hull bloomed technologies unseen in living memory. Swarms of autonomous drones, sleek and predatory, tore through destroyers like wolves ripping at prey. Coils of gravitational distortion bent Imperial trajectories aside, redirecting their own fire back upon themselves. Weapons older than the Empire itself roared to life, kinetic projectiles accelerated to fractions of light speed, each impact shattering ships as though they were glass. The Empire's fleet was vast, but size meant nothing. Their formations collapsed. Their numbers choked their maneuvers. In their arrogance, they had never fought an enemy like this, an enemy born not for conquest, but for survival. The hunter carved through them, not as a ship, but as a judgment. Admiral Sarek Kaler's replacement, a younger, untested commander, watched in horror as his ships fell apart. "It's impossible," he stammered, his voice cracking. "One vessel cannot." But it could. It was not merely a vessel. It was Earth. Every strike was a message, every maneuver a reminder. Humanity had been exiled, hunted, erased from history, but they had endured. They had learned. And now they had returned, not to negotiate, not to plead, but to remind the galaxy of the one truth it had chosen to forget. Earth fights back. The Emperor, watching from the bridge of the Crown of Ascendancy, felt his certainty unravel. His fleet, his grand symbol of dominance, was burning before his eyes. Yet still he clung to rage. "Bring us to the forefront," he ordered. "If one warship dares stand against my empire, then I will crush it myself." The Crown surged forward, its weapons roaring. For the first time, the hunter hesitated. Its drones scattered, its movements slower, more deliberate. It circled the Emperor's ship like a predator gauging its prey. The Emperor sneered. "Yes. You bleed. You can be destroyed." But deep within the hunter, the humans aboard prepared their final act. In the command chamber of the Earth warship, Captain Arlen Vey, his face carved with lines of exile and endurance, stood before his crew. His voice was calm, steady, heavy with history. "This is the one who ordered Earth erased," he said. "This is the hand that burned our home, scattered our people, and wrote us out of history. Today, we remind them who we are." His crew answered with silence, but their eyes carried fire. The hunter turned, its engines flaring. It charged directly at the Crown of Ascendancy. The Emperor's laughter filled his throne. Suicide? Then die, forgotten. But the hunter was not charging to die. It was charging to end. As the two titans closed the distance, the hunter unleashed its core weapon, something unseen for millennia. Its hull split open, revealing the Terran Singularity Lance, a weapon so dangerous even humanity had once sworn never to use it. A spear of compressed spacetime, raw and merciless, tore across the void. The Crown's shields buckled. Then shattered. The beam ripped through its heart, splitting the Emperor's flagship in half. The explosion lit the system brighter than any sun. When the light faded, the Crown was gone. The Emperor was gone. The Grand Armada was broken. And the hunter remained. Silence fell across the galaxy. News of the Emperor's death spread faster than fire. Worlds long crushed under imperial rule rose in rebellion. Colonies declared independence. The Empire, once unshakable, began to fracture. Through it all, one name carried like thunder through the stars: Earth. The Warship did not stay to conquer. It did not plant banners or claim territory. Once its message was delivered, it vanished back into the void, leaving wreckage and revolution in its wake. But the memory remained. The galaxy now knew that Earth lived. That humanity endured. That they could never again be erased. In the archives of fallen capitals, historians would write that the Empire collapsed because of rebellion, because of weakness, because of hubris. But those who had seen it with their own eyes knew the truth. The Empire's end began the moment one warship appeared out of nowhere. A warship with a name burned into its hull, older than the Empire itself. EARTH.